welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael, and thank you to everyone for joining us on a Saturday afternoon. And I have to say, in full transparency, I've been talking with her for like 15 minutes backstage, and I have to say, you all are in for a huge treat with my guest tonight, or this afternoon. So used to it being at nighttime. And I am so grateful that we were able to make this work. As you may remember, she was scheduled earlier on a normal night, but due to circumstances beyond control, we had to reschedule. So, thank you all for finding us this afternoon. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my amazing, talented, super awesome friend that I have just made in Quebec. The one, the only, talented Chloe.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for coming on. And you have such an interesting bio that I feel like I could not, if I was to read it, I would totally be missing so much of what you do. Can you share with the audience some of who you are and what you're up to?
Of course. So my name's Chloé De Chevigny. Like Michael said, I'm from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And how would I describe myself? I consider myself to be a star seed. I've been through a spiritual journey my whole life. I've always been connected to the universe and reality that isn't just what we see with our physical eyes. And I also studied in film, so I'm also a filmmaker, so my goal is to make documentaries and movies about these topics so that more and more people can become aware of what's really going on. And I feel like we all have the birthright to be empowered and to have access to all of these hidden truths that have been suppressed for too long. So I really feel like my mission is to expose what's really going on, but also like focus on our positive timeline, even if there's like a bunch of negative stuff going on. Like if we don't put our attention too much on that, then we will be able to shift as a collective. So I'm also a spiritual coach. I work with people to help them understand all of these concepts and also to be able to live their most authentic life. So I mix filmmaking and spiritual coaching, where I am creating a TV series on the positive impacts of ET contact. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I have to say, when I read that about you doing the positive impacts, that like hit a chord with me, and I was like, that is so needed right now, because we're living in a world where they're trying to fill us full of fear and everything. That to have a series coming out that's like, hey, we're not going to give you the fear narrative, we're going to give you the true positive narrative, is amazing. And the only question I have to ask around that is, are you going to start it out as being only available in like Canada, or are you going to have it available worldwide as soon as it's done?
Yeah, I think my goal would be to reach as many people as possible, because I know that a lot of people are just not even aware of all of this or don't believe in extraterrestrials because it's been hidden and suppressed and classified for very long. So I understand why some people like have such a resistance with the concept of extraterrestrial beings like interacting with us and even having uh, like that they helped create us in a way. So my goal would be to have it available for as many people as possible. I'm still like debating like where I want it to be distributed, because I mean there's so many like uh, platforms and distribution companies out there. So I feel like in divine timing, like one step at a time, I'll be guided to choose the right place to have it available.
That's the best way to go about it, because I feel like if you go trying to get to the popular
Mm-hmm.
networks, that they're gonna get it, chop it up, and be like, okay, so this is what you can air with us. And you're like, you just took my hour show to 5 minutes. What am I supposed to do? So, yeah, I think it's really great that you're standing up and saying, I want it to be this way. And so I will wait till
Mm-hmm.
they're ready to present it this way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also like I'm waiting to work with the right people, because I mean I have like pitched my project to multiple people, and I have like been on meetings and stuff like that, and sometimes you can just feel that like they're already trying to like take over and like uh, implement their own, like I'm super open to like advice, or like, oh, we could maybe do this like this. But when someone says, oh, your project right now, uh, it's not enough, or like, oh, there's already so many alien themed documentaries, I'm like, yeah, but it's not my vision, and it's not my like the positive, I mean there are positive documentaries, but compared to all of the fear-based ones, not really. And I really want to dive into like people's stories. Like I'm working with people who are in their 70s, and they've had contact since like 8 years old, and they like talk to them all the time. They've been on ship, like there's just, and their whole life was positive. I mean, as humans, like there's ups and downs, it's normal, like we're here to experience duality, but the beings with who they're interacting with are not negative beings. And the universe is so abundant with life and beings and higher dimensions. Like, yes, there are negative beings, reptilians, all of that, but in comparison to all the higher dimensional beings, like it's not comparable.
I agree. And I think it's also interesting to note that, you know, there are positives and negatives to both sides of each star race or star being origin. And so I think it's really cool that you're wanting to focus more on people's experiences versus the narratives that have been shared, because there's so many times where I feel like people don't believe their own experience because it doesn't fit the
Hmm.
narratives that are out there.
Yeah. And we also like have amnesia, so it's like a lot of people like have had experiences, but it's like they forget, and then even like later down the line something will trigger that memory, and it's like, wow, I've been through that, but I forgot. It's crazy how the mind works, the brain and all of that. It doesn't mean it was a negative experience, but sometimes it's just so out of what we're used to that our brain is like, ah, it doubts that we even saw something, or it's crazy.
Right. An example I use in the paranormal field when I'm talking with people, and they'll say like, "Oh, I've never had a paranormal experience." I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "So have you ever been like walking in a building or walking somewhere and you start to smell a flower that's nowhere around?" And they're like, "Well, yeah." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "That's a paranormal experience." And they're like,
Mhm.
"What? No way." And it's like, yeah. And so many times we'll just write off experiences just because we're like so entrained to say, no, that really didn't happen. That wouldn't happen to me. That happens on the TV or to the movies or people like that. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I would agree with you that, a lot of people are conditioned to forget or write it off. And it's like, yeah, we need to stop doing that. And so I think it's really great that you're wanting to give a voice to generations of people who really have not had a voice for the longest time out of fear of either being called a crazy person or threatened to be locked up because of talking about a subject that's everyone's like, nope, not supposed to talk about that. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And I think like with podcasts like you're doing and like nowadays it's like so much easier to find this information. And I even like recently, like if I do research or I'm just curious, when you do a research on Google and there's the AI at the top, I'm like, sometimes the information that comes up is pretty accurate, and it's still AI used by the bigger companies. So even the AI will use all of the information that's like on the internet, and there's a lot of information because more and more people are talking about it. So it's like you can no longer deny that it is true because there's so many facts. People are like, well, show me the evidence. I'm like, okay, maybe you haven't seen with your physical eyes yet, but it doesn't mean that it's not true because you haven't seen it.
Right. And one thing I've been noticing lately is like you look up at the sky, and if it's a clear night and there's not a lot of light pollution, as we call it, and you can see the stars, some stars seem to be blinking, some seem to be stationary, some seem to move ever so slightly. And it's been so long since we've really looked at the sky, as we can't tell the difference between looking and seeing, is that a star? Is that a planet? Is that a UFO?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, people can see them all the time, but not register it because they're don't know what they're looking at. And the reason I didn't mention satellite is because satellites, you can tell because they're moving in a straight line across the sky at a constant pace. So that is definitely a satellite. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, and I started taking pictures of objects in the sky that looks stationary, but something just didn't feel like, I was like, I don't think that's a star. And so I would take pictures and film. And what's interesting is when I look at it on my phone, the image is not like a dot like you would expect. It's looks like it's a streak or something moved, and I'm like, my hand didn't move. I'm like, I was totally still, and the image comes out looking like it's moving. I'm like, that's not a star, because a star is just a speck, as we're taught, in the sky, not a moving object.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like for the people who are saying that they've never seen anything, I'm like, do you take the time to look up at the sky? Because if you're constantly like just going about your day and you're just have a small like I don't know how to call it, but anyways, of course you're not gonna see anything. Like, you have to take the time to, because yes, you can see UFOs in the sky, but you can also meditate and receive information. Like, there's multiple ways of communicating with them, but it's just, if you're not taking the time to open up, then of course you're not seeing anything.
And actually, I want to take a moment and kind of sidetrack what we're talking about, because there's something unique about everyone, and I love to hear the story. What was the aha moment that one led you to understand that you're a star seed and a ET contactee? But also, I'm curious, the aha moment where you said, I want to take my life and put it towards giving these people this voice and starting these film projects, the documentaries.
That's a really good question. So like I said earlier, like I've been through like spiritual experiences my whole life, but the ET part came a bit later. My dad is a big film buff. He has like a collection of over 3,000 movies. I think that's also why I went to film school. But his dream was to become a cameraman, but he decided to take the more safer route. But I grew up watching E.T., all the movies, like the science fiction movies. I like to say science fiction because it's not fiction. Anyways, that's a whole nother topic. So it was already in my consciousness. I would always look up at the sky. But last summer, so I went to film school, I graduated, and then it's like, I know that I'm meant to become like a director, but then it's like you come out of school and usually you have to start at the bottom of the ladder. So you work on sets and everything, but you're not directly like a director. So then it was maybe beginning of last summer. I was starting to watch a bunch of podcasts on uh, ET contactees and just like near death experiences, just everything that's like out of the normal day to day life. And I've been watching those podcast episodes like even like 5 years ago, but I became like more obsessed. Not obsessed, obsessed in a good way, like becoming more and more passionate about this topic. And I went to a party, and then it was all people from my film school, and one person asked me, if you were to do your dream project, what would it be? And without even like thinking about it for too long, I was like, a series about ET contactees. And then like that week I was like, why am I not actually taking action on this dream? Like, what's holding me back? And I woke up one morning and I was like, it was kind of early. I usually wake up around 9, 10 if I don't have anything planned. But now it was like 7 in the morning. And I just went on my computer and I designed the poster. I wrote down like the outline of like the project. I sent a bunch of emails to people who are now collaborating with me. Like, I really felt guided to birth this project. And then like a few weeks later I started seeing orbs in the sky, flashes, all of that, and that was like my confirmation of like, okay, I'm on the right path. And then I I was doing research about star seeds like during COVID, like 2020. And now it's just like, without a doubt, I just know. It's just a knowing. Now I do a lot of meditation every day. I journal, like I spend the time to connect with my higher self, and it's just an inner knowing. And by watching other people talk about their mission as a starseed, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm here to do. And then I did the past life regression, had past life memories on other planets, met part of my star family, and yeah, my higher self was basically saying that I'm a peace warrior, not a warrior like physically fight, but uh, fight with my knowledge and and standing my ground and and pursuing my dreams and my passions, which are these projects about exposing all of this.
No, I think that's really great, and what a gift. And I'm a little bit curious your thoughts because being an ET contact and meeting your star family, do you feel like that moment when you woke up and was like, let's put this dream in motion? Do you feel like maybe your star seed family and the ETs may have been kind of nudging you in that direction and saying, okay, we want to help you get this out, so let's get started?
Yeah, 100%. But at the same time, it's like it's important to not put them on a pedestal either, because it's like we're all equal and we're all playing a part in this like disclosure movement. So yes, I'm receiving like nudges and all of that, but it's also like I really truly believe that my higher self comes from those dimensions, but I'm still me here. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I have my 3D personality, but I'm the same person as my higher self. So yeah, so basically, yes, I'm receiving guidance, and like I always see like 444, like 444 started when I was younger. Like my dad would wake up at night. Like my dad is more science is facts. Like you can't travel faster than the speed of light. Like he's uh, he doesn't believe in like spirits and all of that. But again, like he has all the alien movies, so it's like I'm sure he's part of the movement, but he, there's also like people who have soul contracts of like just not really believing in this stuff, and I feel like that's pushing us to like, no, it's true, like here's why, here are the facts. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, that's fine. It happens to me too, and so
Mhm.
it'll either come back to you or that was all that was meant to come, and that's why it stopped. So universe works in fun ways, and I have to agree though that we can't put the star seeds on a pedestal because human nature through society we've been taught is we don't have the abilities to do this or that where they do, and so if they come and help, they're going to turn around and say, you're our new god, you're our new deities, and you're superior than we are. And that's not, like you said, that's not true. Is
Mhm.
we're all on the same playing field here,
Mhm.
but we're not trained to think of it as, oh, you're just another person coming to help
Mhm.
me learn to fish instead of feeding me fish, as that analogy goes. And so, yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up because, yeah, I think that's something we need to always be reminded of. Is that's why I feel like they don't just show up in the skies and are like, in the science fiction shows and movies and saying, okay, we're here to help. We're going to help you fix your planet now and put everything in right order because half the population probably would never accept it, and
Mm.
the other half would be starting to worship them, which is not any different than what's going on here now.
Exactly. It's like we see it in ancient times, ancient like civilizations, or even just religions where they did worship God or like people from the sky. It's seen everywhere. Like the facts are there. But like being a starseed sometimes can be also difficult because it's like you're like I've had moments where I feel like I don't really fit in anywhere, or like I'm talking with my good friends and like they don't go as deep as I would want to in conversation, so that makes me feel a bit lonely. Like it's not like the perfect rainbow and unicorn life, you know what I mean? Like everyone goes through like hardships and doubt, and it's part of being in the 3D dimension. But yeah, so it, or like when people like back in the days when people would tell their story, their ET contact story, and people would be like, ah, they're just looking for attention. No, because most of the time they would get insults and like it would be a nightmare. Like more like back in the days, I feel like now it's not as bad, but like just like whistleblowers, like they're putting their lives in danger, and you're telling that you're saying that oh they're doing it just for attention or just for money. I'm like, they're not making money by sharing their story unless it becomes a movie, but you know what I mean.
I do, and I have to say, as a star seed, I do understand what you're talking about and going through, and so do know you're not alone in that. We all have it, and it's the blessing is when you find through the journey others and you find people you can talk to about it and understand, and that kind of helps. But still, yeah, there is a heavy lonely fact because you start to a way you can realize it is normal everyday conversation, like you were saying, it seems kind of trivial and meaningless
Mhm.
to us because we're like, with everything that's going on, this is what we're going to talk about. This is what we're focusing on. Where there's this and that that's so much more interesting. And yeah, so it is hard to maintain relationships and friendships with people who are not on their spiritual awakening yet. And one of the gifts that we can do, and I feel like your documentary series and TV shows, when they come out, will help, is, for example, I like to do my shows as I call them seed planters,
Mm.
where we're planting a seed of an idea. People see it, they can either grow it or let it sit and germinate for a while and maybe grow later or maybe never grow. That's up to them, not me. And so your shows and documentary series, movies will be, I feel like, the same thing, is something that people can use to walk the path that they so choose. And if not, they at least had the choice because the information was there.
Mhm. Like my goal is that even this like the slightest curiosity that someone might have while watching my projects, it's enough for me. And even if not, it's like maybe in 2 years, ah, remember that series I watched? Oh, let me go watch it again. And then it's like it opens up, it activates them. That's the goal. My project is gonna be activators.
See, and I think that's brilliant to do because I will admit I grew up watching like Battlestar Galactica. or Star Trek or
Mhm.
Star Wars and V. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but in watching those, it's like when I first watched them, I was like, yeah, this is cool for all the effects and everything.
Yeah.
But now, where I am now, when I go back and watch it, I'm like, oh my God, there's this in this show, and there's this in this show. How did I not catch this the first time I watched it? And it's, yeah, I mean, so it's amazing to me. Those are the type of shows and series that I feel like are more meaningful, is like Stargate, the Stargate shows.
Mhm.
Everybody thought, oh, how cool is it? They're going to different worlds. And now, we're living in an age where we're like, Stargates are real. Oh my God, that show was real. And now you're going back and looking at it and going, whoa, I want to, how can I do that? Why are we going through this way? Or why are we going, and it's like, yeah, the shows stay relevant throughout time because you start to see it through different filters.
It's like it makes magic real. Like magic is real when you start to uncover like the things that the ETs do, and like the technology, and like it it's like magic is real, and it's like, wow, isn't that better than just this mundane life, like, for the people that they think that this is it? Isn't that just a better, like, just a better not a better choice, but it just, I don't know, I get excited thinking about our future, and so many people are like, ah, like I understand why, because like I was born in 2000, so it's like I still have a few years, in front of me. So it's like, for all the people that are like, it's selfish to have children because we're too much on the planet and all of that. It's like, just, it's so negative. I'm like, well, when you understand all the technology that is available to us, that doesn't, it's not a problem anymore. Like, we can solve world hunger, we can solve pollution, like all of that is available to us. And that's the other thing, it's like it's been hidden from us for like the longest time. Like, we can have free energy, we can have our little UFOs instead of putting oil in our cars, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's all available. It's just that the people in control don't want us to be empowered.
Right. And one of the examples I think that best showcases that is like the canals of Venice. Everybody has always talked about how they're so polluted, and it's going to take decades or centuries, according to science, to clean them up. And then what happened when the world went into lockdown? The canals cleared up and were cleaned. And it was like, and they're like, oh my God, look at the canals. And so it just goes to show that, we think we know what's going on around us, and we really limit ourselves by looking at things through our ways instead of looking at through natural ways. And
Mm.
when we look through history, it's like, people were living to 400 or 500 years at a time, and then we're told, oh, it got shorter and shorter through evolution. And to me, that seems backwards. That's like a de evolution if you're
Yeah.
living shorter. But, and they're like, oh, well, these people, had stones and invented a wheel, and by accident, and somebody brought them fire. And it's like, and we look at today and go, I couldn't make a wheel if I wanted to. I don't have the means. And again, it's like, everything that they're showing us as progression is, if you look at it in ways of living styles, they're actually regressions. We're
Mm-hmm.
going back before even Stone Age. And it's like, God, I mean, it used to be where everybody knew something about everything so they could help each other. And now it's, oh, you got to go see this person for this, that person for that. Nobody knows any more general ideas. Everything's so specified. And I feel like that's part of how they're taking away, in essence, our divine rights, because we're all, told, even through religion, is we're supposed to be the children of God.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're told, well, yes, you're a child of God, but not when you do this, not if you do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, how can I be and not be?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that always interests me is when they say, like, oh, we're all children of God, and then Jesus is the child of God. Well, if we're all children of God, how can there be one guy that's the child? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute. That doesn't make sense to me. It's like we either are or we're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I feel like that's where star seeds come in, is that it's easier for people to like resonate with just another normal human being, because it's like it's more in their reach. And like, we're all unique, we all have our own like personalities and all our own qualities and faults, but it's like at the end of the day we're all the same. Like, of course some people take the more negative route, but most of us want the more positive route, I believe. Like, if you take I don't know, 1,000 people, and a horrible event happens, well, most of them will want to help out, and it's just like in our instinct to like, like unite as a community. And that's what's missing right now with like just the countries, like just that it like separates so much. It creates so much separation. And even just in Canada, like there's Quebec, which we are the French, and then the rest of Canada is Anglophone. And I've lived in the west coast of Canada, and it's like just there's like a competition between French and English, and I'm like, we're all the fucking same. Sorry for my language, but it's true. Like, can we just, Americans and Canadians, like, as if like I'm superior and they're inferior. Like, that needs to change. And that's part of like, if we want to shift like vibration, like it's small things like that need to change. Or your neighbor, you hate your neighbor, but we're just all humans. Like, we're all doing what we can with what we have. So it's to have more compassion for others, not judge as soon as you see someone, like from their appearance. Like, just it's basic things, but I feel like we struggle to not do that, because we've been programmed to do that.
Right. And I feel like the media has a lot to do with that, because I talk to people who are in their, say, 60s and above, and they're like, they remember radio shows and TV shows and news where you may have one negative story and the rest of the hour was all positive stuff that's happening,
Mhm.
or they were just sharing two sides of what's happening.
Mhm.
Nowadays, you get, if you're lucky, one positive story, if at all, in a week, and everything is one sided.
Mhm.
It's no longer like, oh, we're just presenting an event, taking, what resonates with you, if it's positive or negative, formulate your own opinion. Now they're trying to make your opinion for us, and the problem becomes the way it's called programming is if you have one person say this is bad, and then you watch another source, and those three sources say the same thing, and you start to realize they're all saying the same thing,
Mhm.
you think then it must be terrible because not everybody can be wrong. And the people who are not in the mainstream media who are sitting there saying, no, this is a positive, we need to do this
Mhm.
because it'll bring about this golden event, everyone's going to go, no, they're not telling the truth, because if they were telling the truth, the mainstream people would be saying the same thing.
Mhm.
So that's how we get programmed, and television shows started becoming television programs.
Mm.
Even put it in our faces by calling them TV programs,
Mhm.
and people just blindly accepted it because it became repetitive. And so, I mean, it's like they say in science, you can say the sky is green.
Mhm.
And if five other people come up to you and say, yeah, the sky is green, you're going to look up, even though you see it as blue, you're going to say, the sky is green,
Mhm.
because people, you don't want to be the one that's not in the mass.
Yeah, it's brainwashing.
It really is. And one of the things in your bio that I feel like I want to mention and bring light to, and I think this is a good time to talk about it because it has to do with the mass, is you say one of your missions is to heal the collective. And so, do you want to talk some about that mission of yours and how you view that, or how you feel to take part in that healing?
So, well, I believe that us talking about all of this is already a, a start for the healing of the collective. But it's just like when you understand that everything is energy and frequency, and when you understand that what you put your attention to, that's what manifests in your life, like it's like the laws of the universe. Well, if you're constantly like focusing on the news and like and intaking like negative fear based like stories, and just even like being careful about what you're consuming like on a day to day, sometimes it's just small little things that can like trigger like anxiety or any like lower emotions, and that is what keeps us stuck and not able to live our most authentic self, our most authentic life. And it's just like I want people to thrive, and I want people to be able to feel empowered and not powerless. And so there's many little things that we can do to help our healing, like um it's about recognizing like any limiting beliefs that we have that are just holding us back. Like it's not bringing us where we really want to be, and we are capable to reprogram our own mind and the way our brain works. It might take time, but there's so many resources out there on the internet or videos of like how to heal limiting beliefs, and you know, a lot of it is also like traumas, and we also carry like past life traumas or even just traumas from our ancestries. So it's just becoming aware of all of this, and like if you have a negative emotion coming up in a situation, take the time to ask yourself, okay, why am I feeling like this? Where does that feeling come from? When did I first experience that feeling? Because it's not because you perceive a situation to be negative that it is 100% negative. Or like, you know, I've struggled with anxiety and depression like my whole life. And when I do feel those ways, it's like when I'm anxious, for example, it's like I I'm at a point where I'm not sure what's coming ahead. You know, like I don't know what's gonna happen, and I mean, it's easy to imagine the worst case scenario, but nothing determines that bad things are gonna happen. If you focus your attention on that, well, that's the vibration that you're at. Therefore, like if you want something like good to happen, well, you need to be in a better place to be able to attract that. So it's really being more and more self-conscious about your feelings, because feelings are indicators of, are you in alignment or are you not in alignment?
Right. And talking about like anxiety, you know, a lot of people experience that and turn to like medication to try and suppress it. And a lot of people talk about, oh, you know, doing this, doing that, this may help, that may help. And so it gets overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
when you even try to find help for, say, anxiety. And, you know, and I'm only using that as an example because you brought it up. And I'm curious with you and your processes, when you see the signs of the anxiety coming on, or you're deep into the anxiety, how do you sit back, look at it, and go, wait a minute, this
Mm-hmm.
isn't where I need to be, and get yourself out? What do you do that maybe people that are watching this show may be able to switch to? And I'm not saying don't take your meds because
Yeah.
if they're helping, you know,
Yeah.
do, you know, I'm just suggesting this is an alternative.
Yeah. I'm really into like journaling, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like journaling, but it's just like taking the time to like sit down with yourself, and writing is a form of channeling too. So it's like you connect to your higher self, and like even your spirit guides or even your star family, if that's what you're into or if that's what you believe in. And you'd be surprised of like what comes out when you write down. Maybe in the beginning it's like more negative because you're still in that anxiety, but the more you write down, and you can ask yourself questions like, uh, why am I feeling like this? Okay, it's because of this situation happening in my life. Will this last forever? And then it's like just like asking yourself questions to dive more deep, and then it's also to find a more positive thought that you can replace. So for example, uh, if you're in a place where you're not really attracting money, and it's like, I'm not I'm not doing enough, or I'm not good, so I'm not attracting money, or it can be whatever limiting belief. But is that really true? No, it's not really true. It's just a limiting belief. It might just be because you're in a phase where the money is not flowing in, but it's all our birthright to be abundant and to thrive. And if many people are living off of their passions, you can do it too. It's also to not compare yourself to other people. uh, be inspired by other people. If someone can achieve a certain thing, then you can also achieve a certain thing. Meditation, like, I know sometimes it's hard, or you think you don't have enough time, but take the time. I meditate every day for at least, so that's me. I meditate at least an hour, but that's just me in the morning when I have the time. There's guided meditations. That's very helpful to reprogram your mind with affirmations. There's really good guided meditations out there on YouTube. It's free. Do your self-care. Self-care is really important too when you're not feeling well. Just uh, showing yourself more love by doing things that you love, and just reminding yourself that if you feel stuck in a situation right now, it won't stay like this forever. Life is always changing, evolving. We're here to expand, so it's about sitting down with yourself and doing all these little things. And I know it's hard sometimes, but it'll make you feel better down the line, and it's with practice too. Practice makes perfect.
I agree, and I kind of have another question for you. And again, I'm not using this to diagnose anything or anything like that, but you mentioned like depression, and a lot of people get stuck in depression. So, what advice would you have for people who are, you know, feeling like they're depressed or stuck in it?
Yeah, I've been through there, and it's really not a fun place to be. But it's if you're able to do at least one thing that brings you a little bit of joy, even if, because I know when you're in a depressive state, like, nothing feels good, but there might be some small things that kind of like just uh, make you not think about anything. We need to do more things that brings us in our not creative, but it can be just taking the time to make a good meal. And I know it's hard when you don't have the energy, but you can't it if you stay in that stagnant energy, it's not gonna it's gonna stay the same. It's hard to it's really hard to understand, but it's like there's you need to move that energy, whatever that is. Making cooking food, just going outside, like breathing air like 5 minutes, or trying to go on a walk. Like, sometimes you might need to force yourself a little bit, but is it better to be in that state for too long, or to try and get out of it? It You need sometimes to take small baby steps, like small actions that you can do. To just watch a movie that might just, even if it doesn't bring you that 100% joy that it used to give you, just doing small things that moves your energy. Because if you're always in that negative like energy, then it's not gonna bring you where you want to be.
That's a really good point, and something that I feel like people don't realize is, like you're saying, it can be a little step. It doesn't have to be the major grand gesture that you're like, oh, I can get out. It,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of little things that suddenly, all of a suddenly, you're doing the bigger things and more outgoing again. And so I think that's important to note. And something that I feel like I'm wondering your opinion on is, a lot of people feel like when I do work like and look at something and find the positive in it, it's done. That's all there is to it. But we don't realize, because of all the ages of suppressing stuff, we've created like these little onion deals in us. And so we're not, when we look at something, we're maybe looking at the tip of the onion where we're thinking we're at the core of the onion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious, with your work and what you've been doing, do you find that to be true? And if so, how do you keep yourself from feeling like, oh, well, what I did didn't work, if it's coming back?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it does happen, and but it's like you need to focus on your vision, on your like, and that's where like journaling comes in. Like there's so many like exercises you can do. Like every morning I'll like, depending, like I don't always do the same thing, but an exercise that I do a lot is just writing down like specific details of like what my dream life would look like. And it's so easy to write it down. I'm like, yeah, of course, this, that, na na na. And when I'm doing this, I'm tapping into that energy of like, I know it's possible. All of it is possible. It's in the moments where there's like self-doubt and all of that. That's where you're not in alignment. When you feel negative emotions, that's not who you really are. And so when you meditate every day, and like I don't know why it's hard for people to meditate. Like I used to not meditate because it's like, another thing I need to do in my day. But it's like you're not doing anything. You're just laying down or sitting, whatever you're doing, but it's like it doesn't ask for any like energy. And so visualize like who you want to be, and tap into that energy, and that's who you really are. All the lower and more negative thoughts that you have about yourself and all of that, like it's just your mind playing tricks on you. It's like the ego is there to protect us, but it's keeping us so small, so small. We're here to expand. And when you meditate, and with time you're able to connect to that, your higher self, and that's where you become to really like embody self-worth, confidence, uh, passion, all of that. Like we all have access to it. It's just about doing the small things to tap into that. So I always give like meditating and journaling. And journaling, like sometimes I can journal for like half an hour, but sometimes it can be 10 minutes. And I like to do it in the morning because it's like that's how I start my day. Some people do it at night. Uh, Practicing gratitude, like I know it's like, not that it's cheesy, but when you're thankful for what you already have and you're not in that state of, I don't have this, I don't have that, why do people have this and I don't, it's like you're gonna attract more of that if that's what you're focusing on. So focus on your vision, and like things can change very quickly once you focus your attention on what you really want.
And I feel like to me the reason why like I don't meditate a lot
Mm-hmm.
is because my mind has been so constantly going that I feel like if I sit down and do absolutely nothing for 10 minutes or an hour a day, I'm wasting that time of the day or I'm not being productive. And so it's like I feel like it's programmed in us not to sit and be still for
Mm-hmm.
any amount of time because there's so many hours in a day and we have so many things we want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem possible to sit down for even like 2 minutes and go, "Okay, I'm just going to sit here." And as you're sitting there, it's like not be going, "Okay, is the time up? Is the time up?
Mm-hmm.
Can I go now?" It's like
Yeah.
I think it's really hard for people because we've been programmed so that during certain hours we're supposed to be doing so many things that it's hard to stop and just be.
But I feel like that's where you receive, like, yes, I know, like that feeling of like, is the time up or all of that, but eventually that it doesn't do that anymore because you understand the benefits of meditation, and uh, like you were saying, like, it feels like I'm not being productive, but actually you are being productive because maybe you're gonna receive into a intuition to start a project, or uh, receive a download, and that's gonna be like a aha moment that's gonna change your life. You know what I mean? So you are like, we have this concept of being productive is like working or like doing things, but when you quiet the mind, that's when you allow guidance to flow in, either if it's from your higher self or from your spirit guides. Like, we can all connect to source. It's all there. We need to stop looking at the exterior for uh, our answers. Like, all the answers are within, so it's really important.
Oh, I agree, and I do feel like I should take more time, and I could. Just I somehow every time I plan on it, something just happens, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. And I'm a procrastinator on some things, and
Yeah.
so I own it.
Yeah. But there you go. It's about the self-awareness, and from there, that's when you can take baby steps in order to, because that, again, like procrastination, it's like it doesn't really bring us anywhere, like I know I do it too, but it's like I feel good when I do the things that I tell myself that I'm gonna do, and when you're doing them, it's like you're in flow. That's also like when you receive guidance or downloads or whatever, is when you're in flow. So that can be anything, like you're cooking food, or you're I don't know, you have things that you need to do on your to-do list, but that can be a form of meditation too. Like if like for example, like just taking a shower, sometimes I receive downloads in the shower, like mundane things. You need to quiet the mind, and that's when like things come in, but I know it's hard. It takes practice, but everyone can get there.
Well, and if you go by that theory, it's like I don't sit still and, just sit. But there are times like, when I'm cooking lunch or dinner, I'm in like a zone to where I feel like I'm on autopilot,
Mm-hmm.
and mixing everything together, making it all go, but I don't feel present there.
Mm.
And so, like you're saying, that could be how I meditate is cooking
Mm-hmm.
or, doing prep work for shows. I'll like zone out and be in a zone and like I'll go, oh yeah, I'll only be like half hour. And next thing I know, it's like 2 hours later. And I'm like, how did it get to be 2 hours? I only needed a half hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's my form of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think is worth noting too is, meditation may not be sitting like they show in movies where you're just sitting there with your legs crossed and your hands open and, just chanting or just sitting in pure silence. You could be in motion doing things,
Mm-hmm.
but still in that process. So that
Mm-hmm.
may be helpful for some people who feel like they can't meditate, go, wait a minute, I can't. It just doesn't look like
Mm-hmm.
what this person thinks it does.
Mm-hmm. Because we all receive in like we all have intuition, we all receive guidance, but we do have free will, so it's what path are you gonna take? That's also where self-awareness comes in, of like, am I listening to my intuition, or I'm finding all the excuses to not do what I really want to do? And then that might make you not feel good because you're not flowing in that natural flow that you're supposed to be flowing in.
That's true. And another aspect too is you're getting this information and everything, and people, I think, sometimes will sit there and go, well, yeah, I had these thoughts come in, and, I started thinking about this way, but that's too much like something I watched on TV. So I'll just chalk it up to, oh, that's the TV show, and won't view it as the downloads. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm famous for saying on shows the way my mind will relate something to me is through a TV show or a movie I've seen.
Mm.
And I can make it relatable that way. And so people may not realize that, yeah, you were thinking about the TV show or movie that you watched the other day, but your mind is giving you a download and saying, okay, if we give you this information in the block that it is, you're probably going to write it off and say, no idea what you're talking about, and forget about it. But if we make it relatable and into something that you were just interested in,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, just maybe, you'll take a hold of it and you'll look into it more and make that download reality and a full thought process. And like you're saying, start a new project or
Mm-hmm.
a new avenue of thinking
Mm-hmm.
versus going, okay, you need to, think about this. And everyone's like, yeah, that's not a topic I'm into. So no thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And I'm curious when you get ideas for, like when you're drawn to things, is it like you get a feeling of, there's something to that. I remember some of that, or there's something about that, or how do you take a something that you see in like a second and go, wait a minute, let's grab that and let's explore that some more.
Sometimes it's just like an inner knowing, like I feel like my whole life, like my like at the when the pandemic hit, I was in Montreal and I was the server back then, and I wasn't going to school because I wanted to I was supposed to go to Australia to like travel and go over there and live my best life. But then COVID hit. This It was like the same month that I was supposed to leave, and I could have been like, well, I was a little bit like, that sucks, and like take that further of like, I'm never gonna go anywhere in life. Just like all the negative blah blah we have. And then I just this is my these are my circumstances and I'm gonna make the best out of it. So I used that time when we were in quarantine. I did meditation. I watched a bunch of podcasts. Like I was just like, if you're somewhere in life where nothing's really moving, learn, do research, get curious, learn stuff that you enjoy. And so I was like diving more deep into my spiritual practices and all of that. And then I just had this download of like, I should drive across Canada. And then maybe it took a week of like, is that a good idea? Like, it's the pandemic. But I'm like, I'm not doing anything here because like the restaurants were shut down and Canada was still giving us a bit of money every month to like survive since everything was shut down. I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna lose anything by leaving. So I left. It's just like little nudges like that. I didn't think about it too much. And then I left. And then it's like, uh, went out west. And then fast forward later, I'm living in the Canadian Rockies in Alberta. And I really wanted to buy a van so that I could like live in it and travel across British Columbia. And so I did. It's just like following what makes you excited. And then I was supposed to come back to my job in Alberta, but I just had another nudge of like, I should move to Vancouver Island where it's like a surf town. It's kind of like uh, LA and like, but the Canadian version, like the beaches and surf town, and everyone's like super hippy dippy. And so it's like just when an idea arises and it makes you excited, why would you not do it? Because it's not safe. You know what I mean? You
I
just
do, and
sometimes when you want to do something, just do it. Don't focus on, but what if this happens? I'm like, live your life. You're here to experience things, not only work a 9 to 5 and just do that. Like, we're here to experience, meet people, see the world. I mean, if that's not what you want to do, that's fine. Then do what you like doing. If that's staying at home and being cozy, but don't not do something because you're scared of the outcome.
yeah, see, that happened to me when 2020 hit with the lockdowns. Is I had all these things in motion, and they all came to a grinding halt. And I passed on opportunities to do stuff because I let the fear of, if I go outside and I leave my city or my state, I may not be able to return.
Mm.
And so, being, isolated for 14 days to come back didn't seem worthwhile to go and experience one day here.
Yeah.
So I talked myself out of a lot of opportunities
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, yeah, it's not worth it if I can't come back.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I had friends that were going out and doing all these grand adventures, and I'm like sitting at home and going, I don't want to risk not being able to come home and come back home. And it's like, yeah. And was it horrible that I gave in to that fear? No, because it opened up a few other doors
Yeah.
that may have been, I may have missed, but do I regret it? A little bit, not too
Mm-hmm.
much, but I mean, so kudos for you for, going and saying, I'm going to go out and do, and whatever happens, happens. And so, yeah, I mean, there's two sides of the coin right there, as
Mm-hmm.
you decided not to go with the fear and
Yeah.
explored, where I stayed with the fear and didn't explore as much. I did go out some
Mm-hmm.
when I felt more comfortable doing it. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people need to realize is you have to trust your intuition. And I know for my situation, society always says there's women's intuition. Men don't have it. I find that to be a big misinformation,
Yeah.
that men definitely have it as well. And we
Mm-hmm.
just call it our gut.
Yeah.
And so, and you have to trust yourself. And if something doesn't feel right, don't do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if everything feels right, but you're letting somebody else talk you out of it,
Mm.
that's where you need to look at, why are you letting them dictate what you're going to do?
Yeah. With Yeah, that's a hard one with family, or even just like, even if you're in a relationship and you don't agree on something, it's like, stay true to yourself. Like, they are living their life, live yours. And like, someone who's like trying to uh, make you do something, or or like, because when I was like 21, I was like, I that's when I was like in my uh, I had like a 3 month long like depression, and I was living out west, and I was far away from my family and everything. And I was talking to my dad on the phone, and I'm like, I just want to travel and be free and like make money. And his conventional self was like, well, that's not really realistic. And I was like, okay, like I kind of like accepted that. Now it's like everyone's doing it. It's like a big thing to be like a digital nomad, and like, and you can make money by having a business. And like, it is possible, it is realistic, because a lot of people are doing it. So it's like, be careful who you're taking advice from. Are you taking advice from someone who is not living your dream life? Then that advice is not for you. You know what I mean? Like, if your parents are like telling you how uh, that something isn't possible, but then you see all these other people, like your people who inspire you, are doing it, then of course they're gonna say it's impossible because they never did it. So that's where we need to be self-empowered and not needing exterior validation.
Right. And one thing I like to point out when, it took me longer probably than you to realize this is when we look at words and phrases like impossible,
Mm-hmm.
you're actually saying I'm possible.
Mm.
And so it's like turn it around, and go with it on that one and say, yeah, you're right. It is impossible because I'm possible. Therefore, I'll make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's always gonna be people that don't believe in your dreams, but I believe in my dreams. We need to believe in our own dreams because we're the only person who's gonna achieve them. It's not someone else. It's you.
I agree. And I can say, in full honesty, even though we just met, I am actually anxious to see your series and your documentary movies. And so I'm like, I'll be definitely watching for when they're available where I'm at and being like, yes, I'm finally I get to watch these because it's so cool what you're doing. And real quick, I know there's only like 7 minutes left, but I wanted to save this for the end because I feel like it'll help your mission and your dream is, do you have any positive ET experiences that you can share with us to kind of tease a little bit of what your project is about from
For
your
the
own experience? Do you don't
Yeah, uh, I don't have like super crazy stories like most of the people with who I'm working with have, but I'm still young, so it doesn't mean that it's not gonna happen. But it's just like I know it's basic, but it's just like when I go out, like I live in the city, like in Montreal, and so I mean, there's maybe 4 stars in my sky at night, but sometimes they show up. Like I'm outside, I'm like asking them to show up, and then I just see like a blue orb like pop up in the sky, and it's just that I'm just so grateful for that experience, and I can feel the love, and I feel safe, and sometimes I tear up. I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like I'm so I appreciate it so much because it's like just that is special. Just that like that experience, because I know that no one else saw it because it's right in front of me. I'm alone. It's for me. So just that, and like when I did my past life regression, like I went to this blue planet where like there were white feline beings that greeted me there, and I cried. I was like, I miss you, and like I could see like they have like crystal like buildings and stuff, like, and when I meditate I can see my one of my spiritual guides, which is one of the feline beings, and like we put our head against each other. Like I do that with my cats, like I've always had cats, and I just feel that like connection, and like uh, kind of that feeling of like going back home, even though I know like this is my home too right now, but it's like it's from a past life. So it's and also like with time, I really believe that time is not linear, and that it's all like parallel timelines that are happening all at once. So when you're connecting to a past life, it's like you're bleeding with another timeline that's happening at the same time. So that was something I just wanted to add there. But yeah, I'm excited to because now it's still cold in Quebec, but as soon as it gets warmer, we're gonna go out and connect with them more. And I want to practice my telepathic communication with them. And I mean, I say that I'm ready for them to show up in my living room, but I know that maybe my body would react, like be like, whoa. So I feel like they're not showing up to not scare me, and that I trust in my own divine timing of like, because I talk to people that have ETs like in front of them, like physically. So I know it's possible, but I feel like I still have like uh, I still need to work on like raising my vibration and just trying to like talk to them, like communicate with them telepathically. So yeah, that's my story for now. But they always show up. Sometimes they don't, and I'm like, ugh. I'm like, did you forget me? But then the next time I go out, they're there. So I know they know I'm here.
Well, I can say from my personal experience, Chloe, I hope you include that orb story in the series because, like you said before, there are no minor
Mm-hmm.
or better than aspects to it. It all is what it is, and
Mm-hmm.
so don't discount your experiences and saying, oh, I'm young, so better experiences are to
Yeah.
come. I would cherish the ones that you have and share
Mm-hmm.
those because they're just as impactful as someone saying the craft landed in my backyard and I shook hands with, this race.
Yeah. But I want to do that too, you know what I mean?
Oh, I
That's
know.
in my vision, so I will manifest it.
Oh, I know. I just wanted to throw that
Mhm.
out there and say, don't, discount yours because it's just a orb in the sky because those are just as impactful as
Mhm.
other experiences. And real quick, where can people find you if they have stories that they want to share with you or find your work?
Yeah, so all my platforms are under Chloé De Chevigny. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, a little bit on TikTok, and my website is chloedechevigny.com. So very basic. It's all just my name. And I think I'm the only one with this name, so it's easy to find me. Yeah.
I venture to say you probably are.
Yeah. I did some research, and there's a few people with De Chevigny, but not Chloe. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your stories and your experiences and sharing your time with me today.
Of course, it was a pleasure. We had a great conversation.
Yes, and hopefully we can have you back on and maybe, can share some more because we didn't even get to touch on some of the other aspects of what you do yet.
Yeah, exactly. Of course.
And thank you to everyone in the chat room and thank you to everyone that's watching. And normally I will say good night, but I'm noticing we are in the afternoon, so I'm just going to say have a blessed weekend, everyone. And we'll see you back on Tuesday night for our next episode.
Yay.
All right. And I always forget to line this up, so there's this little moment of awkwardness. You'd think after 3 seasons I would have the timing down better, but nope, still human.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.